All right, everybody, welcome on back and good afternoon to all. Continuing along, of course, our Thursday, closing out our week, or beginning to at least here, live in the Cyber Group Trading Room and live streaming across social media, Facebook and YouTube Live. Welcome on back, guys, for our afternoon meeting. Let's get a quick sound check just to begin. Make sure everyone can hear me loud and clear. And little time wasted here, right, guys? The CLSK, of course, squeezing higher going into our Thursday close. Great to see all of our students right here inside our trading room. Jake, John, Cliff, David, Bonnie, Kathleen. You guys are coming in too fast for me, which I love. Great to see everybody, though, like I said. So without further ado, guys, let's begin. We have the CLSK trade, like I just said, squeezing up going into the close. Right away, I'm going to post the news. So CleanSpark trades or CleanSpark shares are trading higher after the company announced that it had won a $2.9 million grant from the California Energy Commission. There is news out on CLSK, not even from this morning, but actually dating back from Monday of this week, a potential partnership with Tesla. Now, CLSK denied that partnership, but that ended up getting some interest, and we ended up seeing a huge squeeze going back into the beginning of this week. Well, we ended up seeing more news come out this morning, shortly prior to the market open. Let me zoom out here on this chart really quick to begin, guys. CLSK ended up making a huge pop right before the 9:30 market open, but it took a while to get the gears going. If I have the time right now, guys, let me just do this quick. So, it took a while, like I'd said, but we had resistance. We ended up seeing this make a push up towards resistance at 385 here. Really quick, guys. 1 second. Looks like there's some audio cutting out here just inside our live trading room. Give me 1 sec, guys. I'm going to just do a quick refresh. If anyone could hear me, see me still on the YouTube Live, Facebook streams here, guys, just give me about 30 seconds, a minute. Slight hiccup here in the action, guys. My apologies. Just 1 sec. All right, test 1 2 1 2. Can you guys hear me now? For all of us here in the live trading room, should be good. Perfect. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully not another hiccup there. But I posted the news just a moment ago in the chat board across both YouTube Live, Facebook, and in the trading room here in relation to a $2.9 million grant from the California Energy Commission. We ended up seeing this stock make a huge run up, but it took a while to get the gears going. Really quickly, I guess, before another potential hiccup with my connection. I don't know what happened there, guys, but right as the market opened up, we ended up seeing what we call the opening bell print for this CLSK trade. And that opening bell print was right at the price $3.85. I had my line at 389. I was supposed to be at 85. There we go. Right here at the market open, a 129,000 share print, specifically at 385. So you could see what happens. Shortly after the open, it made a false breakout, popped pretty nicely at the time, but came crashing right back down. And it took a while to make this, to have this make a new push going into the afternoon. But of course, as you could see, once it just broke above that 385 again, it took a bit, but ended up making a very strong pop, and at least for right now, a new high. So yeah, for right now, going into the close, CLSK, easy enough for us to put this on our list. Hopefully it continues to be a fairly easy trade going into the afternoon. All right, so CLSK, one of a few stocks that's been moving up in terms of the electric vehicle sector, or business, as we'll call it, NIO, right? So NIO, we ended up seeing make a huge move up once again in pre-market, ended up taking a bit, but popped shortly after the market opened, bounced off support essentially at the time off 1310, ended up running up very nicely up towards the next whole number off 14, and as you guys could see here at least, ended up breaking above that whole number resistance going into the afternoon. NIO broke above 14, seems to be holding above it, a higher low, at least off that last shake, that last crash under the level. So, you know what, for right now, guys, I mean, the stock is obviously very heavily traded still, not as much, at least compared to yesterday at this point, but we'll put NIO back on our list. I say normally when a stock is very heavily traded going into the afternoon, we more often than not tend to see exhaustion. But with NIO breaking all-time highs yesterday, with this also being shortable should this crap out the other way and drop, at least both ways, it provides still some decent opportunity to follow. All right, guys. We ended up getting in this trade off the 1320 level a bit earlier on this morning. So shortly after the market opened up, as this came crashing back down, we ended up going long, myself and a couple of our students here inside our live trading room. It took a bit, like I said, though, but once this broke under 1320, but then right here, when it pops through the level on the way up, this right here is the sweet spot. You want to make sure you try and get in right there if you can, have a tight stop set. And of course, the rest was history at the time. A nice move up towards the next resistance. And at least you could see it held that 1320 pretty nicely going into the late morning there. All right, so CLSK, NEO, a couple of others that we did fairly well on, at least earlier today. We'll bring it back all the way to pre-market. I'd be remiss to not bring up this QD trade. You would look at this QD trade and say, well, after the open, there wasn't really any good opportunity to trade it. That's where I'd say that you're wrong, because much like NEO, QD on the other side of things, it's easy to borrow from TradeStation. At least this stock is shortable. We ended up seeing this shortly after the open make a pop over 3. I know a few of us were jumping in this trade right over 3, which at the time, a really good setup. And even more so, I have to say, for the students that I was working with earlier this morning that told me about their trades on QD over 3, well, the losses were very tiny, very minimal. So I had one of my students jump out of this trade. They were in over 3. They got out at like 298. And then I had another student ended up getting out at like 293. And then from that point, I mean, the stock ended up sinking. So it was a fantastic loss by those traders. It was a great setup at the time to see potential continuation. But, you know, hey, much like I say all the time inside our live trading room here, guys, when we tend to see big volume levels get filled, we should see a big result. Well, if this pops above a big resistance here at 3, we're hoping for a continued move up. But if it comes crashing right back down under that price, guys, get the hell out. And you could see what happened after this point. QD ended up dropping a phenomenal short opportunity from there. And at this point, going into the afternoon, it's actually right near the lows still. I feel, though, in this case, it's just not as much opportunity. If we see this break below 240, 237, the low of the day, perhaps we could see it drop a little bit lower towards Tuesday or Monday's peak there, roughly over 220. But for right now, I think that the main part of this drop-off has concluded. All right, so for any of the others, guys, what we'll do is go right from top to bottom. The Dow has been extremely flat, at least going into the afternoon. Nice drop-off early on, so some side list stocks perhaps are moving on the way down with the market. For anything else that was up or down quite significantly that we traded, we'll look to cover it pretty quickly. Actually, I see one right away. I mean, number 9, ALT. We'll get to that in a moment. So, of course, from yesterday afternoon, we traded that ALT stock. From this morning, it only continued pushing. So I'll get to that one certainly in a moment. But let's begin by building up our afternoon watch list for right now. Oh, and actually, really quick, caught myself here. My time in sales. Got to reset it here. All right, look at this. SPAQW, SPAC warrants. We'll call this a 200,000 share print. That's what I'm more interested in here. So that's pretty good timing, right? At 2:35 Eastern time, a 200,000 share print filled on the offer at 380. So big volume levels. We should see a big result, right? Well, I'm not going to immediately put this on our watch list just yet, guys. Going to check in just on regular SPAQ. This thing's taken off like a missile. All right. So now with this in mind, at least the regular equity SPAC SPAQ making a really sharp squeeze up here. I don't know what the news is, but obviously it looks like all-time highs already for this trade. So that's where I'll then put the warrants on this list going into the afternoon. I'll put both. So our top percent gainer, the SPAQ.W, that's the warrants. And with the regular one pushing up, don't be surprised if this begins to move with it. All right, BGI. We ended up seeing this make a nice pop shortly after the open. Fausto called this one out pretty early on. We weren't as interested in this from the pre-market as much. I mean, it was dropping off quite a bit. It was kind of just looking to be a dump back down. But hey, at the open, ended up reversing course, made a nice squeeze up over resistance here at 150 and 160, made a nice run up. But as is the case with a lot of these small cap stocks, they tend to drop off in volume fairly quick. So that's exactly what you see here. Ended up tailing off, and now it's right back to where it had opened up, essentially. All right, CLSK already on our list. Maybe we'll just check in on that just by the end of this meeting to see where it's at. BGFV. So this was also one from the morning, guys. Big Five Sporting Goods. We ended up seeing them post earnings, I think. Ended up making a huge squeeze up. too big of a squeeze up, in my opinion. Normally, when a company reports good earnings, bad good earnings, we tend to see a fairly significant move anywhere between, let's just say, 8.5% to 15%. It could be more, but that's the general range that we tend to see a lot of stocks, jump up or down towards after they post their earnings. Well, I bring this up because freaking BGFV was up like, 100+% off earnings. I'm sure there could have been other news that came out at the time, guys, but point being, with a stock like BGFV that's up 100, 150% or more, perhaps we'll call it, when the market opens up, we got to expect a pullback. We talk about this exact pattern every day in trade, or every week rather, in our live workshop Traders Talk conducted right here in the Cybergroup trading room. But, normally those stocks are not shortable. They're hard to borrow. Well, this BGFV, this was like taking candy from a kid, I have to say, just because, based on past expectations, we're expecting this to drop. But if it's not going to make a pop and begin to move back up, then I would only expect for this to tail off going into the morning. And it did just that. I want to give a quick shout out. I don't know where he took the entry exactly. I think he picked up like 80 cents on this short. Philip B, one of our coaching students, ended up shorting this. Actually, he took this beginning from the pre-market going into the open, so he was already on top of this to begin. But as soon as this ended up opening up and dropping, he knew that he was in a good spot. So Philip B, I think he picked up 80 cents on this trade on the short side. So fantastic trade from Philip. At least going into the afternoon right now, guys. It's still tradable. It's still at 40%. It's still kind of pulling back towards the low of the day. So perhaps we still see continuation on this short side going into the close. For right now, I'll come back to this perhaps. I'd like to go through the rest of the picks, gainers and losers, and see what else we have. Perhaps I will come back to this just at the very end of this meeting. All right, so we got both. Oh, we got like 3 of these SPAC. And then what's this, like Class D stock or something? Class C. Much less liquid, though, much less volume being traded. Same move, but I'm going to trade the regular one and trade the warrants there, too. All right, number 9, ALT. Holy smokes, guys. I got to talk about this for a second. ALT, yeah, not even today. I'll just show this here. I'll go through the main move from this morning. But look at this thing yesterday. We had this stock on our watch list going into the close, and it's not for me to tell you that we were expecting this return. But, looking at the daily chart, this stock has been like split over and over and over and over and over to the point where it's like showing negative value. I have no idea what's going on here on the daily chart, back from like 2015. That's some function from TradeStation, so I'm not sure what that's about, but seeing that leads me to say that this stock likely has been split over and over and over, which leads me to say if this stock breaks above resistance going into an afternoon, perhaps we see a really nice squeeze up. So this ALT did that. It blew our expectations out the water, though. It ran all the way up towards 20. So, of course, we're going to watch this stock this morning, guys. But, oh my goodness, are you kidding me to see not only just continuation in general, but to see probably the most perfect uptrend that we could ever find. So this ALT trade ended up playing out literally picture perfect, trending off the low of the day, 1611, all the way up towards just about 23. And like Patrick here in our trading room is saying here, with no halt. That's even the crazier part, Patrick, right? The halt man must have been out to break here, but we ended up seeing the ALT trade squeeze up beautifully. Once it really started to accelerate from the trend line, you could see it came crashing back down, right? We talk about that quite frequently just in our phase 1 stock course. But hey, at least right now going into the afternoon, I'm going to put this easily back on our main list. It's not for me to guarantee this is going to just break higher going into the close, but how could we not focus on this, right? I wouldn't want to just throw this in the trash only to see it, eventually bounce and make that run. So at least for the meantime, we will keep this ALT on our watch list. The trend here going into the afternoon is lower highs and pulling back down towards support here at 21. So just be a little careful here off that 21. All right. So enough of the ALT for the meantime. We'll keep going through our list here. Very nice squeeze up shortly after the open from 1350-ish, 1320 low up towards 16. Nice run from earlier. Daily chart looks pretty wacky on that one. DSS. So I mean, kind of similar to the BGFE from earlier today, guys. For a stock that's up as much as this, we would expect the pullback at the open. The difference: one is shortable, one wasn't. So unfortunately, this DSS trade dropped like a rock, but we weren't able to short that on the way down. Dolphin DLPN, nice little pop at the open. Who's on our pre-market watch list, on the CTU morning watch list as well. Nice little run, died off quick. Another one, nice little run up, but dying off now, the ALDX trade. This is familiar, a familiar name at least. We've traded the stock going back into late March, early April. Maybe to keep an eye on this perhaps for tomorrow, or maybe next week perhaps, but at least going into the afternoon today, not really doing too much. All right, guys, we still have a lot more on the gainer side here. I saw a call out from one of our trial members, Jake. He's saying space making a push up, and it's kind of slowed a bit down here, but still pushing here generally. Higher lows, making a higher high at least over the last hour. Hasn't broken a true new high of the day yet, of course, right? So for right now, we're hoping to see this hold support off of 19. Look to see this squeeze back up going into the close. We are very familiar with the space trade. Needless to be said, you can imagine going back into late 2019, 2020. We were all over this move, guys. So it is a very familiar name. And of course, looking at the range on the daily chart, seeing this near the highs going into the afternoon, this one will easily make the list and probably right at the top. All right, let's see, guys. Just go through maybe one or two more on the gainer side here. Market's pretty flat. There wasn't a whole lot that was up tremendously that looked great. Went over Neo already. Fitch, Abercrombie & Fitch. Oh, you know what? I keep forgetting. This is not Abercrombie & Fitch. Far-fetched. American Eagles AEO, ANF. That's Abercrombie & Fitch. I keep forgetting. Every time I see FTCH, I just assume Abercrombie & Fitch. Yeah, I'm wrong. Well, either way, and whether it's Abercrombie & Fitch or Far-fetched, yeah, this one's right near the highs going into the close. Order book is fairly liquid, filled in, tight spread. It looks kind of, flat in a tighter range, but I like how this is holding strong going into the afternoon near the highs. So, yeah, Abercrombie & Fitch, right? We'll put that on our list. All right, that does it on the gainer side, guys. We'll hop over to the losers list, see if there's anything on this side of the field that looks just as good, if not better. Right away, number 2. It is easy to borrow. MHK dropping off pretty nicely here. Bit of a spread, bit of an empty order book, but needless to be said, though, obviously a nice drop off going into the market open, continued going into the market open, and made a bounce. So, for any of the as we would jokingly call the CTU billionaires, for any of our traders inside our live trading room that, hey, happen to focus on some more expensive stocks, this could be one for you to watch. Jose is pointing out another one. It's on the gainer side, so I'll get back to that. The mRNA trade, so Moderna. We're going to get to that. If I were to choose between the two, right away, I would pick the mRNA trade. So I'll keep this one actually just on the side for right now, Jose. I'll jump to your mRNA here in a moment. Bunch of stuff hard to borrow otherwise, though, aside from that. How about Bed Bath & Beyond? Top percent loser today, guys. Oh, my God. I mean, we knew that their earnings would be after the bell yesterday, and with that, I was kind of telling you guys, keep a good eye on this trade. We follow Bed Bath & Beyond off of news and off of just big volume. Unfortunately, we couldn't short this. So once it was dropping off of bad earnings, I knew I wasn't going to watch it. Ended up making a phenomenal continued move once the market opened up, as you could see. And, perhaps now off the lows, maybe we see a bit of a squeeze up. But given 52+ million shares traded, I'm not going to put this just on our list for right now. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But for right now, I'm going to pass. Here's a cheapie, ENZ. We called this out actually yesterday on some wacky pump up, and then it just kind of stalled out and died, and at least for right now, kind of tailing off. Dom says the ALT trade looks weak. The reason I put it on the watch list is just because of how it's been moving the last few days. I'm still going to keep it on our list, but of course, like we were saying before, that ALT trend was lower highs and it was dipping back to support, so we'll check back in on that one at least before we finish up, Dom. Bunch of stuff otherwise, guys. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's technically tradable, but nothing that's really making me just say yes right away. This ODP is shortable. This one, actually, maybe I just jinxed myself there. ODP Office Depot, I think they had reverse split. This is like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago already at this point. It was like a pump up and then like oh, it was this day actually. It was like a week ago. See this jump up in pre-market and then it dumped all the way back down here. Well, tailing off right now, and at least for the meantime, it's shortable on TradeStation. So dropping to support off of 20, this ODP trade, pretty interesting. We'll put this on our list here. All right, guys, if there's anything else that looks good, just let me know right in the chat board here, and especially across social media, Facebook, YouTube Live. If you guys have anything that looks good, just let me know. Run a quick scan. From Donnie, yeah, the CLSK trade easily on our list. We'll check back in on that one just before we finish. Oh, that's right. Let me go to jump to Jose and his mRNA. So mRNA came out news, and they came out news like in pre-market, pretty early on. Ended up making really kind of a low volume move at the time, but other stuff came out going into the mid-morning here. So I'm going to post that also live in the chat board. All right. So sure, at this point, everybody has their own opinion on Dr. Fauci. We're not going to go into that as much. It's a matter of just the news that's out there. So Moderna vaccine, Fauci says, will very likely be going into advanced phase 3 clinical trials by the end of July. Listen, that sounds like great news to me, right? So mRNA ended up making a huge pop. Actually, it was shortly after that news came out. It wasn't right off the news pop or right off the news drop, rather. Once the news came out, that was right at like 11:15 Eastern time. You could see pretty much at 12:30. Thing ended up making a huge breakout, popped right above 62, ended up moving up towards essentially the high at the time, 65. It's had a tough time trying to break higher, but still holding pretty strong around those prices going into the afternoon. So, yeah, definitely the mRNA will make the cut there, Jose. Great reminder. This one I would not have found this on the gainer side. It's only up 5% compared to everything else, but very strong squeeze going into the close. Let's see, guys. Anything else from Jerry Glue? That's right, GLUU. This stock came out news earlier today as well. Thought it did. Ended up making a huge pop, at least once the market opened up. I thought I had the news on Benzinga. I didn't see it. I guess I don't have it here. All right. Well, either way, Glue just made a new pop, at least going into the afternoon. Yeah, I'll put this on our list as well, Jerry. I mean, just very tradable stock. Made a nice move earlier this morning, of course, just off this little pop here, and the fact it's also shortable. So if this is a false break and this completely goes the other way, that's where I'd say it'd be an interesting opportunity to try and short. But yeah, at least for right now, we'll keep this in mind. Neo broke the 1450 pat. Holy smokes. Look at this. Running right back up to make a new all-time high, it looks like, guys. And then Kathleen pointing out WKHS pop. So let's get to Workhorse, WKHS. Yeah, off the 16 level. Kathleen, I was saying to you guys earlier, WKHS worth watching a 16. Now, I wasn't looking to catch the falling knife, and it's pretty shaky around that 16, or it was just up until this last little pop. But perhaps this could be the beginnings of a squeeze higher going into the close. We don't have too many stocks on our main list right now. So, yeah, for right now, Workhorse will at least add, kind of in the same category as Glue there. Workhorse, though, I think a little bit more volatile over the last week. So I feel like this could be a little bit more worth it here off the pop. All right, guys, Facebook, YouTube, you guys have anything? Let's see. Got I&O bounce at 2350. It's a setup. Lower high, pulling back towards that support. The I&O trade ended up making a nice run back on Tuesday of this week. Ended up running going into the afternoon yesterday. For right now, I'm not going to put this on the main list. I would put I&O in the same category as WKHS in terms of just the range across the last 2 weeks. So it's a very tradable stock, and it's one that I would recommend any like advanced trader, level 3, 4, or 5 trader inside our live trading room to keep this on your side list every day. And perhaps 2350 does hold. But looking at the trend right now, it already held generally earlier today, made a lower high. I feel like it might be just on its way back down. DSS drifting the whole day after a huge gap up. Yeah, we kind of covered that already, Peter. I'm a little late to the YouTube chat, though, so you mentioned that just before. QD short tanked, says James. Yeah, from earlier today it did. So that was a nice short that we went over earlier. For right now, it's just flat. Not really doing much. All right. From Pat, AMD at 57, another pricier one, but obviously a really strong push right now. Is there news on AMD? I know that AMD would be presenting, or in lieu, I think, with Apple and some tech conferences coming up pretty shortly, if I'm not mistaken. Jerry says no, just the semis, just the semiconductor market, that is, right? So we'll take a look at like Micron MU. It's moving up pretty well, Jerry. Intel, kind of slow, but making the same move. Yeah, it does seem to be the tech stocks, the semiconductors in general, NVIDIA, of course. Looks like NVIDIA is poised for a new all-time high. NVIDIA just keeps ripping. All right, so you know what? Maybe I'm biased towards my AMD. I'm an AMD stan, so to say. So I will add AMD to our list. Beautiful trend going into the afternoon. Last one, Mark. I mean, the hits just keep coming, guys. I mean, at this point, we're going to turn this into a 30 stock watch list. Mark S, rightfully so, calling out the SRNE here in our trading room. Right over yesterday's high, right over Tuesday's high, and of course, right now at the highs of the day today, kind of building a bit of a Fausto flag. You could see there, Mark. Really good call. SRNE, another stock that is tied with COVID-19 and potential vaccine news. So we ended up seeing SRNE make a huge squeeze up going back into mid-May. You can see that on the daily chart. No news specific from this morning. There was news from last week, actually, not even from this week, but from last week. SRNE news. I'm going to post that right now. All right, so I think that just about does it, guys. If there's anything else, we'll try and rescan the market going into 3:15, 3:30 Eastern time. I think for the meantime, we are good, though. So in total, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Full house. That's really it for me. I try and limit it to 12, no more. All right, guys, so that'll do. If you guys have any questions, certainly let me know. If you guys have any questions regarding CTU, Cyber Trading University, the online trading room, the online classroom that we have here, this goes across the YouTube and Facebook streams. Make sure that you guys call the phone number down below. One of our education advisors will just pick up, provide more detail. Aside from that, for all of our students here inside the Cyber Group room, as I always say, guys, every day, let's try and close out this afternoon. And we've been doing it. The last 2 afternoons, guys, in this trading room have been really hot. So I hope I don't jinx that, but let's try and close today out just as well as we had opened it up. Take care, guys.